Live from Southwest Florida's morning news source. This is Fox 4 News Rising.
Professional football legend and sportscaster Joe Theismann is speaking out about a potentially life-threatening public health problem. Now, recently, his father was diagnosed with an abdominal aortic aneurysm. It's also known as AAA. So now, in an effort to raise awareness about this silent killer and to encourage at-risk people and all of you to get screened, Joe is joining us along with the Director of Preventive Cardiology and Co-Director of Women's Heart Care at the Medical University of South Carolina, Dr. Pam Morris. Good morning. How are you both today?
Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Tracy.
You know, I've never heard of this before, but Joe, this is a very personal topic for you. Could you share your family history with our viewers and talk about your dad?
Sure, Tracy, and it's interesting that you say you've never heard of it. I never heard of it either. It was one of those things that happened in my life where people approached me and said, would you be interested in being involved in a AAA campaign? I said, well, you know, do you know anybody who had an aneurysm? I said, I think my dad had one, but I don't know exactly what kind. When I talked to my father, it turned out he did have an abdominal aortic aneurysm. And I started to get more and more curious about it and the way it was diagnosed, what it truly is. And I found out that there are over 1 million people walking around today that have AAA and don't even know it. 10% of people who have a ruptured aorta or a AAA wind up surviving. 95% that have it detected wind up surviving. I like the 95% a lot more than the 10%.
I do too.
And so really, it was part of me going out and just sort of taking the bull by the horns. What happens so often when we get physicals, Tracy, is we ignore the fact that this particular part of our body, the abdomen, needs to be looked into. There's a simple ultra-screening test you can do to check the aortic area and see if you do have a problem. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing my orange suspenders to sort of frame this area. So when anyone ever sees orange suspenders again, I want them to think of AAA. I want them to go to the doctors. And you can find out a lot more information by going to our website, which is findtheAAAnswers.org, and learn even more about it than I have, or the more that we can enlighten you with this morning.
And I want to talk to the doctor a little bit, because I know that there are a lot of people who are watching and they're saying women, men, who is more prone to this condition, and how can we find this out?
Well, you know, if you're familiar with the risk factors for other forms of cardiovascular disease, heart attack and stroke, you really are aware of your risk factors for AAA. Now, this disease tends to affect people as they get older. In particular, it affects men more than it does women, particularly men over the age of 60. It does have a tendency to run in families, although that's not always the case. And of all the heart disease risk factors, a history of smoking is probably the most powerful. And then, of course, things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol can also put you at risk as well.
Doctor, is there any kind of, are we going to feel it? Are we going to know that something's going on? Or is it?
Unfortunately, this is called the silent killer because there really are no symptoms whatsoever of an aneurysm until it has a tendency to rupture. At that point, then you would feel abdominal pain in this region, and you would begin to hemorrhage into your internal organs. So this is one of those diseases where early detection is absolutely vital, because not detecting it can be catastrophic and lead to sudden death. You know, the screening test is so simple, as Joe mentioned. It's really just like an ultrasound of a baby. It is simple, it is inexpensive, completely painless, and when detected, an aneurysm can be followed and treated very effectively and safely.
Now, is Joe predisposed to this because his father had this condition?
Well, of course. Now, you know, he's predisposed because he's male, because of his age, and also because of his family history. So certainly he was at risk.
And that's really why I did it, Tracy, because of my family history, because of my dad. My dad's here today because of the simple screening. You know, he's 89 years old. He did this 3 years ago, and if it hadn't happened, you know, he might not be with me.
Well, God bless him and you, and thank you so much for getting the word out, because, again, I didn't know about it, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers didn't either. So we certainly do appreciate the time that you spent with us today. And certainly, if there's more information that you'd like about this segment, all you need to do is log on to our website, which is fox4morningblend.com.